hashtag UNPSA 2015, our Twitter accounts at Ministerio _TIC, at gobiernoenlinea.com, at Urna de Cristal, at ONU_ES, at Undesa, at UN_women, at ONU Mujeres Col. We remind you that tonight there will be a welcoming event to which you are all invited. Once again, I will give way to the words of Mr. Cayusa. Muchas gracias. Creo que en el tema del tiempo ya...
Reasonably well. We are programmed to close this session at 18 hours. And then I'm going to ask the chair of the session to stretch this up to 18:30, which will give each presenter the allocated time, that is between 15 and 20 minutes. And then we will sacrifice, and instead of ending at 18:30, we end at 7, and that will complete the whole program as we had foreseen it on the timetable. So, Mr. Chairman, you have got up to 18:30 to make everyone have presentations and the discussion. I give the floor to you. Thank you very much.
Muy buenas tardes. Damos inicio entonces a la discusión 3, la mesa redonda sobre promoción de la excelencia en el servicio público y la superación de desafíos para la creatividad y la innovación en los servicios públicos. Me acompañan en esta mesa Viviane, Laure, Elisabeth, Bampassy.
And so, the Elisabeth Bampassy will be speaking. The females present in this forum, we are very envious of her beautiful dress today, and we feel improperly dressed today. And so, this is about the realization of personnel and the public sector in Senegal. She's head of the division of general subjects for the nation, also in charge of development issues on administrative topics, with Wayne in the Department of Peking, during the Ministry of Culture. Then we will have Stefania Senese, who is of the Public Administration Network on social and financial issues of the UN. She's worked in Rome, where she participated in projects related to governance topics and human resource topics that have been decentralized. Then we will be accompanied by Juan Carlos Rodriguez. I don't have the material, but I know him perfectly. He is an expert on the subject of citizen services. He implemented in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, a program that has been a model on a Latin American level, and he is currently the director of the National Program for Citizen Services of National Planning. Dr. Clara Luz Mejia studied in the University of Medellin. She is a lawyer. She has more than 35 years of experience in the public sector. She has worked in different administrative positions. She is currently General Secretary of the government. She has worked in important positions, not just in Medellin and Antioquia, but on a national level as well. And finally, we have Miguel Aristizabal, coordinator of the area of open innovation of Colombia. Miguel is an engineer, graduated with an emphasis on innovation, co-creation, ecosystems. So we welcome all of our panelists, and in this manner we begin with a brief presentation, a brief introduction. Each of the panelists will have 15 to 20 minutes. I ask that they please keep this time in mind. My co-president will help me to control the time and give use of, or make use of, the word. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mrs. President, for all of these presentations, and tell you that we will be limiting ourselves in terms of time because we have other imperatives. I'm going to give the word to Stefana. Please take the word and make your presentation.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I would like to thank the government of Colombia and the mayor of Medellin for hosting us, this beautiful city, for hosting the United Nations Public Service Award Program. My presentation will be actually on the United Nations Public Service Award Program, how to strengthen this program in order to promote innovation in the public service delivery. Before talking of the United Nations Public Service Award, I would like just to recall what was actually previously mentioned, that it's very important in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and the three bottom lines approach, which includes economic development, environmental sustainability, and social inclusion, to have a fourth criteria, which is actually governance, good governance at all levels. No one of the SDGs could be adequately addressed in the context of poor governance. So this is a very important. What the world is now searching for how to actually improve governance. And public administration becomes the enabler, the facilitator, in order to achieve the sustainable development goals and pursue a post-2015 development agenda. It's critical for government to take stock on how they actually effectively, efficiently, equitably, they deliver services to citizens. In which way actually they ensure that citizens have access to quality service. It's critical for government to take stock of the achievement toward the MDGs, and now because this is important in order to pursue a post-2015 development agenda, in order to eradicate poverty and hunger. It's critical for government to make transformation with innovation and creativity. And this is not only in order to strengthen public administration and government, but also to make them better in order to pursue a sustainable development. So there is a need for public administration to be able to formulate, to adapt, to implement strategies, policy, tools in order to promote good governance. They need to respond to citizens' needs and to anticipate the citizen needs. Innovation, therefore, creativity, will lead to transformation in government and governance. And this in order to generate what is a positive impact in the nature of public service and in which way they are delivered. So the United Nations, one of the tools on how the United Nations promotes innovation is the United Nations Public Service Awards program. The United Nations Public Service Award program is actually the most prestigious international recognition of excellence in public service, and promotes the role, the professionalism, and the visibility of the public service, encourage exemplarity in public service, and also recognize that successful governance and democracy are built on a competent civil service. What are the objectives? As we can see, as all of you know now with this award, UNPSA objectives, the program aims to discover innovation in governance and public administration, rewards excellence in public service, enhance trust in governance, motivate public service to further promote innovation, enhance professionalism in the public service, raise the image of the public service, and actually very important also the collection and dissemination of what are the good practices. All these objectives aims at strengthening the capacity of the public service for creativity and innovations. This is because there is a new architecture of the public service. We can see kind of a virtuous circle. So successful public sector innovation will lead to better services, which actually bring more trust and legitimacy in government, which actually in turn will take on new challenges and initiative. And we'll start again, as I said, a virtuous cycle. So the United Nations Public Service Award promotes innovation according to innovation promoted in 5 different regions: Latin American, Caribbean, European, North America, Africa, Western Asian, Asia, and the Pacific. I'm happy to present some of the data of the program. As we can see, the program has increased significantly. I report only the data from 2007-2015. We started with 194 nominations in 2017, and now we have, 2007, now we have reached 848 nominations in 2015. As the number of countries also has grown among 71 countries. So what does it mean this? Actually, there is a growing interest from governments in innovation, in promoting innovation. And the fact that they apply more to our program means that the way of recognitions of their innovations, since there is a recognition worldwide. These slides present the number of winners from 2007-2015 on a total more 3,000 nominations, so 31 from Africa, 77 from Asia, 47 from Europe. Sorry, I cannot really see very well. 30 from Latin America, 47 from Western Asia, but for a total 225. So what is UNDESA, the PDM, is now taking, is conducting a research, pilot studies on what is the profile of the innovators. Is taking into considerations all the winning initiative so far as a pilot process, project, and will take into account, of course, all the nomination that we have received, so all the nomination from innovators countries. So we can see the innovation process is basically what we are going to understand. The ultimate goal of this evaluation study is to capture public sector innovation, to try to trend innovation. There is a trend on innovations. So that's what we are trying to understand. What is the profile of the innovator? So we can see we have some drivers, of course, that will conceptualize in ideas, the implementation of the ideas, the impact, and then at the end we will try to understand how these measures, this impact will let countries to achieve sustainable development. So we have actually as incentive, we can see some need-driven, efficiency-driven, context-driven, technology-driven. Most of the country could have actually equal use of these four drivens, except there is actually a strong use of technology-driven by countries from Western Asia. What's its innovation type of the country? What kind of innovation a country will adopt? Well, we have a distinction between product, therefore the introduction of new or improved services, process, implementation of new improved method for the production, delivery of services and goods, and policy, the use of new policy instruments. The graphics show that actually all of three are used by government is in terms of innovations. Of course, there is actually interdependency between policy, process, and product. So the policy will also facilitate or even hamper the product and innovation in product and process. Degree of novelty. Is it true that innovative product, processes, or processes is something that has never been adopted or updated, or it means only inventive? We believe actually, as according to the definition of innovation of the United Public Service Awards, that is the introduction of a new concept, a new idea, a new approach, also to something that has been already invented, already development. This is according, as I said, to a context of a given country. So the degree of novelty means that there is also an update of some improvement of the existing products, so adaptation of new existing products, or introduction of distinctly new product. As we can see, actually, as I said, all the regions will actually use as an innovation all these three approaches: updating, adapting, or inventing. Leadership. Leadership is actually fundamental in the whole process of developing innovations. We know that leadership cultivates actually at the workplace that allowed and continuous improvements. What we have noticed is there are mainly two approaches. One is related to transactional leadership, so work with organizational culture, focus more on tasks. And the other one is transformational leadership, that work to change organizational culture. So except for Western Asia, where there is a more the use of the transactional leadership, the other countries are now looking for transformational leadership as a way to implement innovations. Human resources management, this is a key driving, actually. It's very important for all the necessary steps in order to implement innovations. And we have mobilization, capacity building, empowerment, and motivation, but all of them are fundamental in order to trigger, to implement innovations. Again, the learning process is another component, which is actually very important. Countries make use of learning process like comparative studies, consultation, feedback, and piloting. This is important also in order to overcome what are the obstacles and the challenges. What are actually the barriers, the obstacles, the challenges that countries have faced in implementing innovation? Resistance to change, also lack of leadership, inadequate awareness, inadequate infrastructure, inadequate management capacity, lack of innovation, mistrust, the complexity of procedures. What we have noticed from this study, this research, is actually human resource management is a key component, as well as the learning process, in order to allow an institution to overcome obstacles and barriers. Last point, as I said, that we are trying to understand how the implementation of this innovation will then help institutions and countries to pursue a sustainable development agenda and to achieve a sustainable development. It's with the governance for sustainable development. So we have noticed that all the innovators actually have taken step up in order to make efforts in order to implement transparency, accountability, anti-corruption, and participation process. So this is actually a good news that it's possible to build up a path that will then allow to achieve sustainable development goals. So I will conclude shortly. I just want to say this, pose this question to you. What is the value of promoting innovation in the public sector? Is that value? We all know that it's costly, so it's cost in terms of also efforts, but what we have seen and what is the results of our research is institutions will then have better access to information, more targeted services, improved citizen satisfaction, more simplified administration, improved public service and satisfaction, improved motivations, improved human resources capacity, reducing costs, improving productivity, improved collaborating governance and collective impact, and promoting organizational culture of creativity. We actually have is an important point which actually needs to be developed, which is the dissemination of successful practices. So we need to work a lot on the dissemination of what are the innovation from up the country in order, as I said, also to adapt this innovation, not only to invent. So what are the successful trends and practices? In order to improve the public sector performance, to promote innovation, all these key activities are necessary, are fundamental: building leadership, motivation and engagement, teamwork, organizing work and ICT, promoting training and lifelong learning, knowledge management, monitoring, measuring, collaboration, research, and development. So human nature always has thrived and survived with the use of creativity and innovation, and we just believe that now, in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we really need to promote innovation and creativity. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Estefanía. Muy interesante la metodología.
The proposed methodology is very interesting. I think we should all be very interested in the investigations that are taking place with respect to the profiles of innovators for each of our countries. We're going to give way to Mr. Rodriguez, Director of the National Program of Citizen Services within Colombia. Good afternoon, everyone. Very well, thank you, Vice Minister. We have been given the task of making a presentation on the generation of a new culture of service. And so we've tried to prepare a presentation that might give account of our experience in the generation of that service-oriented culture. Understanding that what we want to do is to create a culture that has two actors, the servants and citizens. What we have done is we've started from something fundamental, which is the expectations and needs of our citizens, which are the center of our work, with a focus of work oriented toward our citizens. And so we ask, how do people perceive us? What do citizens normally perceive with respect to public administration? What normally is presented in the media are these types of images. When the administration has difficulties, when there's some fault in the service, this is what citizens take home with them. And in the mind of our people, this is the interaction that they identify with respect to the administration. So there's congestion during moments of failure of certain services, because normally we have two perspectives with respect to service, and it is that of the citizens and that of the servants. So year by year, we have a tool of the Department of Public Service, which is the FUDAC. And in this tool, where we carry up follow-up on compliance with respect to different norms of our entities, we find that there's a certain work implied within everything that has to do with service to our citizens. And there's a lot to do. Only on national entities we are complying with 66% of our requirements, governments at 63%, and municipalities at 68%. So we've carried out a survey to analyze the accessibility of the services and the quality with respect to the needs and the expectations. And we found that between 2013 and 2014 there has been a decrease from 63 to 58%. And when we ask citizens about what the word service means, they associate it with a negative idea, with an arduous task, hacer una vuelta, or basically move around in circles is what they refer to. They think of congestion and long lines, and only 3% relates that process as an access to their rights. On the other hand, 91.2%, according to a survey of the DANE, indicates that the public servants consider that their work helps to improve the quality of life of citizens, and there's 90.6% think that they are providing a service of quality. And so there is a gap between what the citizens perceive of public services and what public servants perceive of themselves. And so we also see that there's a large potential here. And as we saw in other interventions, effectively it is the servants within the administration who are the base of their own work. And I think that if people believe that what they do adds value to people, then we are paving the way for the administration to become what it wants to be. Aware that much has been done and that there's still much to be done, the administration has been implementing a framework of norms and a mechanism for the generation of a service-oriented culture. In 2013, a policy for citizen services was established. It established two concepts, that of outward windows and inward windows as a single mechanism, and established the mechanism for citizens to access services and a set of principles of transparency, effective service, service vocation, the struggle against corruption, and participation. On another hand, the development plan, which included a territorial focus seeking to strengthen territorial entities, and has 6, let's say, chapters, territorial chapters, focusing on those sectors and seeking to focus on the needs and expectations of each of the territories and effectively closing gaps to achieve something that the development plan calls the good governance focus, in which the central focus is the citizen. If you look at the slide, at the top of the pyramid, we don't have the president of the republic. We have the citizens, who are the reason of existence for the administration. We have the servants, who are incorporated within that different adjectives of being integral and objective, and we have the entities that sustain the society, which we want to be inclusive and democratic, and that is what we call a good government. So what do we want? We know this past, this frame. We have these tools and this development plan. And what we want is to position public service as the reason of existence for public entities. making use of the capacities, the tools, the knowledge and experiences to guarantee standards that may satisfy the needs and expectations of our citizens. For this, we have two tools. And with this, I'm almost finished with my presentation. The first is the National Program of Citizen Services. It is a program of the Strategy of Good Governance led by the Presidency of the Republic and is executed by the DNP with collaboration of the Administrative Department of Public Function and the Ministry of ITCs, which are the main entities for public services oriented toward our citizens. It has certain methods of intervention, which is the interinstitutional coordination, as I've mentioned. The sectors have to articulate to carry out joint activities, and within their competencies, they should be able to carry them out in an optimal manner and collaborate in order to achieve the greatest impact possible. And we carry out different interinstitutional collaborations. One of them is the Fair of Citizen Services, where we articulate around 90 entities that visit municipalities that don't have access to the institutional offers to provide solutions in real time to different citizens with respect to certain proceedings. And we don't do this alone, we do this with the territories, because taking these solutions to the different territories without consulting on their needs would be disrespectful. Besides these fairs of citizen service, I'm sorry, something happened here within the presentation. We have other activities of coordination and joint projects, such as the route map subject, the design and implementation of tools. The program has been developing technical norms, specifically for the availability of physical spaces, service protocols, and the pensum on culture service. And I invite you, tomorrow we will have the launch of the Guide of Clear Language, which is a document that was being prepared before my arrival, and which provides guidelines on the communication with citizens, on the simplification of technical language to make a clearer message. We have institutional and territorial processes which seek to implement certain service centers which have an institutional offer that incorporate private, national, and local entities within a single infrastructure. Also, the improvement of services, of border services and international services, and finally the launch of these tools, which, as I mentioned, the Guide of Clear Language will serve to improve the interaction between the citizens and the administration. And finally, the second tool which we have is the Program of Territorial Strengthening, which is a program financed with resources from the World Bank and which is executed by the National Planning Department, which has three focuses of intervention. The first is a territorial and institutional focus, which seeks to provide technical assistance to territorial entities on all of the subjects of its activities with respect to planning, finance management, and administrative management in order to close gaps. The second is on efficiency and modernization of public management with a focus on results and minimum standards with respect to service provision. And finally, the subject of transparency and citizen participation within public service, seeking to highlight best practices, generate incentives, improve participation in both ways, in both directions, and the dissemination of information on public service. I'd like to end my presentation with a phrase that has been used a long time ago with Dr. Caballero, who was one of my mentors, where we changed the lives of 8 million people and improved and changed the focus of the administration. Is it that for public servants and public administration there is someone more important than the citizens? I believe not. Thank you. Thank you, Juan Carlos. It is undoubtable the importance that has been given all of today to public service. I would highlight the importance that Juan Carlos has highlighted within his interinstitutional work, the presence of different levels of government, the measurements and standards that always seek continuous improvement. Okay. And so we will have an intervention now on the promotion of excellence in the services.
Good afternoon. My name is Clara Luz Mejia, and I'm the General Secretary General of the Governor's Office of Antioquia. In Antioquia, the most educated, we have a challenge, a huge challenge, and we bet on innovation as the core of education, which is the drive our realizations. That's why we work with people and we make good use of new technologies. This leads us to build ties and trust with the community, which is fundamental for us. I'd like to show you this slide. It was made by hand by our governor, Sergio Fajardo Valderrama. And I like this slide because with regards to what we are addressing today, and you'll see ahead up to where we reached, you can see the importance for Antioquia la Más Educada of citizens' participation. To govern, we have to have excellent development plans. Never have we ever had a mayor or a governor or a president with a development plan that's precarious or weak. So that's why we have established a development plan where the citizen is paramount in its execution. Our development plan is based on principles and values, principles like transparency, participation, responsibility. And we establish some problems. When the problems aren't clear, it's difficult to fight them. And there are 3 types of problems that we established. Lack of equality, second, violence, third is the culture of illegality and corruption. The lack of the same equalities. Let me give you an example of how we have this in Colombia. It's like when a child goes out, leaves the city with a backpack with different tools and opportunities necessary to educate itself. And while they move away from the city, the backpack is less heavy, so the child has less opportunities when he or she arrives to the rural areas. We want to fight that. Violence, which is the second problem. Antioquia is one of the departments that has one of the most painful histories in violence. Drug trafficking had its epicenter in Medellin, and many times it took over the states and institutions, and it gave way to illegal groups. Now we have to move from being violent and start looking at new opportunities. And the third problem that we identified is a culture of illegality and corruption. Corruption is a very difficult problem to struggle against, but we're working hard in this administration to create a culture of legality and to fight corruption. Our governor says when people, communities see and feel that they're dignified and that we work hard for their capabilities, they change, they commit. This formula is infallible. Coherence plus consistency equals trust. Antioquia Más Educada, in its development plan, has 7 pillars. The first one is Legal Antioquia. This is the core of the public activities. And it addresses several strategies: struggling against corruption, promoting transparency, taking care of public resources, and institutional enhancement, which today gathers us here. Through institutional enhancement, we have a model serving citizens, which represents an effective communication of the citizens with decreased barriers, creating more credibility and trust, which refers to struggling against influences and the culture of illegality. Why do we have this model of serving citizens? And what are the risks that are involved if we don't bet on this strategy or model? This was born with the purpose of creating and providing responsible services to the citizens so that they could have access to the goods and services provided by the governor's office through dignified, timely, and efficient services. And if we do not meet, or we didn't have this model, there would be risks involved, and these risks are established among all people in charge of proceedings, a lot of red tape, unnecessary proceedings. There are a lot of claims made, lack of trust, and not paying attention to the rights of the citizens. This is terribly serious. This is the creation of cultures with public servants, so at this they have their activities made kindly and in a timely basis. How do we solve this methodology? Using 4 strategies. 1, administrative innovation. Here we created and improved processes to take away or subtract unnecessary proceedings. So now we have a quality system in the governor's office. It's extremely important for us to have established this procedure of qualities so that from one administration to another, we can create an awareness of this methodology. The second, it's called communicative tool. This is fundamental. We have the toll-free number, eliminating gaps between the central part of the city and the rural parts of the city. Also, we have a direct interaction with citizens through trade shows and other activities to have duties that are not always in Bogota. Also, we have technology and online services to provide timely services required by citizens. We meet all of the strategy of the open government. The strategy of open government consists of a government of the strategy of the national government to build a state that's more efficient, transparent, and participative. And the last tool implemented by the governor's office is the enhancement of capabilities. In Antioquia La Más Educada, qualifying its human capital is paramount. That's why we have trained 1,100 public servants, meaning those that face our citizens. However, we also use some good practices that I wish to share with you. in these two slides. We guarantee access to information. Look, the first picture that you see on this slide was at the left side is how we had files in our governor's office. We had 12 kilometers of misplaced files. However, today, on the right-hand side, you see that there are no documents misplaced. What does this lead us? We have safe information to take the best decisions and to decrease the risk of corruption and of document loss. And this second good practice is that we dignify the spaces where people are. In this first picture, this was the before. This was the Office of Passports. Here, you can see it today. And now we have an Office of Citizen Service, which we didn't have before. We had 33 windows throughout the department. Now we only have one. This is the map of Antioquia, of the Department of Antioquia. Antioquia has 125 municipalities. And with this strategy, we reached all 125 municipalities with three fundamental strategies. One, to leave proceedings without a lot of traffic, with all of our kiosks. And throughout the territory, as you can see, we provide training. We have the free toll line for citizens and a place to pay taxes, to make claims, to register suppliers, etc., and a bunch of proceedings. This means that we build ties with the citizens, and that in turn creates trust between the state and the community. When we act with transparency, legality, results are evident. In the Index of Open Governance, which is a measurement made by the oversight entity, we moved from ranking 27 to ranking number 1 in 2011, second in 2013, and second also in 2014. And what is measured here is practically all of the transparency and legal proceedings we have. Likewise, a month ago, the corporation, International Transparency Corporation, awarded Antioquia the first place as the department with the least risk of corruption. And it's because we applied the methodology that I just described to you and that we feel so proud of. The opportunities are a right, not a privilege. This is what our governor says. Sergio Fajardo Valderrama. Thank you so much. Thank you, Clara Luz. What an impressive presentation. For the Colombians, it's no secret how planning with participation of citizens in Antioquia is strong, and the great management of the municipalities of the department, the culture of legality, and as the governor says, the coherence and consistency have turned Antioquia into a place with more trust in its governor and his team. Thank you, Clara Luz, again. Lastly, we will have the presentation given by Miguel Elisabeth, the coordinator of innovation in the area of Ruta N. Welcome. Thank you. Can you hear me? Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for the UN, the national government, and all of you for being here. Welcome to the city of Medellin. My name is Miguel Elisabeth, and I work at the Center of Innovation of the city of Medellin called Ruta N. For some time now, we realized that some of the main mechanisms to to place innovation in the public sector was closer than what we thought. We identified great challenges, of course, to have such a degree of innovation in the public sector. And I'd like to show you the challenges that we faced to enhance creativity and innovation among public servants. That's where we started to identify the absence of mechanisms of participation. Here in the main table, we all say that citizens' participation is a core, paramount to promote innovation within public administrations. I don't know if perhaps it's important to translate the title of this slide for those that don't speak Spanish. It's called The Challenge. Mechanisms of citizens' participation within the administration to enhance creativity and innovation. One of the main challenges was that. Another challenge is empowering people. Credibility of ideas, to think that really our proposals are valuable and can be heard by our bosses. Within the private sector, we have rigid structures which many times are difficult to receive the knowledge among public servants. So there, we believe that empowering credibility, that the ideas can be heard, can be possible and can create great transformations within the administration. That's a second challenge that we identified. The third one, to have a more efficient assignment of public resources using collective knowledge. When we're here in the auditorium, we could be working with a collective mind. We can all be connected as computers are, or green computing, which is now looking for extraterrestrial life. So why don't we start working with a collective mind so that we can create a transformation force never seen before? So there, we started to identify something else that we had to, a third challenge, which individually is much more difficult to achieve. So let's talk about how, through different innovation mechanisms, we start to solve these difficulties so that we can have innovation and creativity in the public sector. Citizens' co-creation. Today we're talking about citizens' participation and the importance that this has. At our Innovation Center, we identified citizens' innovation, where the people outside start working with us, but not based on idea to make a transformation, but instead by the addition of multiple ideas, each one contributing good ideas with mechanisms that are allowed to identify trends and true priorities. That's how we can create a higher index of innovation. So let's talk better about co-creation to add. And the second ingredient to overcome these challenges is social technology, which today allows to integrate collective knowledge in a way never seen before. Before, it wasn't possible to sit 3 million people to think about a project for the city, or perhaps to be able to be more efficient in the decision-making process that we have. And however, using social technology, this is possible. So we have two ingredients: social technology and co-creation to something which in our case is called pulses. These pulses are like energy pulses that start to drive citizens based on questions and challenges. For instance, what would you do to improve the mobility of the city or the quality of life of the population of Medellin? So those pulses that we call questions and challenges are focused on 6 different areas of interest for the citizens: mobility, security, education, infrastructure, culture, and downtown. So based on these pulses, we see reactions, those pulses, as if they were acupuncture in the city. And something else we have to keep in mind: public servants are citizens. Public servants are living their city. They feel the city. They work for the city and for other citizens. So let's talk about citizens as public servants and citizens that are empowered and convinced that they can work together bi-directionally and co-creatively to seek common ground, common good. Let's talk specifically about an initiative that we've had in the administration of Medellin with the Center of Innovation. It's called Mi Medellin. Mi Medellin is focused on launching citizens' pulses so that the secretaries can work together, and so that immediately innovation can be seen right away. Because before we saw that innovation can be expensive and complicated to understand. But if we open the frontiers, if we look at the citizens that are there that can help us to take better decisions, we can start to innovate as of today. So we launched something, it's called Mi Medellin, which is an ecosystem of citizens co-creation, where the people enter and can answer the main questions that we have, or pulses, on those topics, and where those citizens themselves can vote positively or negatively, or they can use the same dynamics to build a city. Mi Medellin, after a year and a half of being launched, has 13,000 citizens registered. 30,000 pulses have been made on different topics. We have received more than 3,000 knowledge, but what's most important here is that 8 secretaries right now are open to work in collaboration with the citizens through the citizens' knowledge and intelligence and using technologies. So we're looking at the voice of citizens, so that together we can take better decisions, and together we can increase the empowerment levels and the trust that citizens have, so that together we can have a more efficient assignment of the city's resources, and together we can start to innovate just as the government has operated. Several of the citizens' proposals are these. We have a pulse of transforming the bridges of the city, because underneath they're always dark, they have garbage, and we started to work on this with the secretaries, with the main public servants who are convinced that out there's a great deal of talent and that we can start to receive it immediately. The cost of this is quite low for the benefit there is with the creativity of the city. Here are the proposals, and not only that, we seek the empowerment of leaders, but with this acknowledgement. And all of these public servants are co-creating, collaborating, are creating ideas and using innovation. We give them medals. We acknowledge them. We give them participation so that publicly they can present their ideas. And we set them before the secretaries and the main public servants so that they can work in collaboration. I'm convinced that when you join forces, you can make high impact changes. And why not? With these ecosystems, we can use this in the other cities, and we start to connect all of these co-creation ecosystems and create a global network of co-creation in the urban setting. Here are other examples of ideas and proposals already implemented. We have the transformation route in Laureles. We asked how to create a neighborhood and to increase the use of bicycles. And we told the mayor, look, this is what the citizens are saying and providing us ideas. This is what our public servants want to do. Let's carry out this project. And here you can see one of the major transformations seen based on creativity and innovation in public sector. And with this, I end my presentation, and I'd like to say one last thing. So you can use these mechanisms of innovation. This is not complicated, really. It's just to get to know them, to believe that talent is also found outside. Here we're being based on using a methodology used from Starbucks or Procter & Gamble and Boeing. Many of the companies that we know of, the most innovative in the world, are using this type of innovation. In the private sector, it's called open innovation. Open innovation means that the talent is out there, that the talent is beyond the organization. And it's simply to start to break those boundaries so that we have new ideas of changes and transformation. And to finish, I'm a bit short of time now. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you keep enjoying the city of Medellin. Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. Your presentation was really exciting to identify the challenges. I love the way how you explain how to assume the challenges, the terminology of citizens' co-creation instead of its traditional participation, the pulses. Your presentation is innovative. Your project is innovative, really exciting. Thank you for all of us. It was a great example. Now, this ends the interventions, and I'd like to ask Viviane to please give us the conclusions of this panel. Especially, I'd like to thank the people that have participated this afternoon. Of today's panel, this third panel of the day, there are two things that stand out, and I think that there is a consensus today in this hall. And it's centrality, first, of the use of public service, and the centralization in the sense of the fact that the user is a target in any case. And it's generally when you keep in mind public service. So it's important for us to keep in mind the citizen and the user, and that in public policies and to implement this, we keep in mind especially the citizen. The second item, which I think is worth remembering of this panel, are the different presentations made today, especially, and of those heard this morning, is that you have to give the public servants their relevance. For instance, my country in Senegal, where during the 90s, our guidance for public service was less of a state, to improve the state, with partners that worked with us, obviously. But this concept did become a degradation of the public service, and it had a huge impact on the image that the public servant had. Meaning, I believe that it's very important in the different presentations we've heard today that if we want to handle properly the post-15 agenda, we have to give the public servant the position or the place it deserves. Otherwise, we can have the best public policies, the most elaborate of the world, but if we don't have an administration that truly has good yields, we won't be successful. In any case, this is the satisfaction I felt after hearing these presentations lies on seeing that the UN is taking these matters in mind. And there's a lot of work to do. Ms. Chairman, please take the floor, and I hope that to hear the work to be in the workshops tomorrow, but let's start the Q&A session. This is the crucial time if the audience would like to ask something. And I'd also like to remind those that want to speak to please introduce themselves and to say who they want to ask the question to particularly. Thank you. Any questions? Please raise your hand. This is the Q&A session now. Anybody has a question? Thank you. I'm a member of the Committee of Experts in Public Service of the UN. My question is for Mr. Aristizábal. I'd like to highlight the importance of his presentation related to the mechanisms used for innovation and citizens' participation, the new concepts of citizens' co-creation and social technology. And my question with regard to the pulses, which I think is strong and interesting, if these pulses are launched and received by the internet, basically, or simultaneously, do you have physical meetings like civic forums, public hearings, which allow the collective co-creation of those that don't have access to internet, or those that do have access to the internet can have a chance to have a one-to-one conversation, which is something good. Thank you for your question. It's very important. We're always thinking that our society and our city somehow needs significant mechanisms to achieve high connectivity indexes to internet. So this is why, in addition to the reception of the citizens' proposals through pulses, we have spaces of co-creation offline. What does this mean? Somehow, depending of these pulses and depending of the target audiences that we have, we go out to the street. I don't know if you remember the last picture that I showed you, where 150 volunteers would go out to the street to ask people, what's the downtown, that's the downtown of the city that you dream of. With these analog or offline meetings, we want to boost the empowering, the participation that people that don't have access to the internet can have. We have even established for those that don't have an email, because many can use the internet but don't have their own email. We have registered them through their cell phone. So you can enter the platform, just place your cell phone number and start to participate. We plan, if we can, if we're lucky, that by next year, remember we have an adult participation, adults that want to participate, they can do it by phone. We want to create a call center for innovation to receive the proposals of the citizens about the downtown area of Medellin. That's important. So each pulse has activations in different areas of the city, depending, of course, on the target market. And many times there, we allow the debate. We have experts in different areas, because many times experts help to target the conversation towards things that are real and tangible. Once in downtown area of the city, we made a huge wall of proposals to turn La Playa, which is a very important road, into a pedestrian area. So on this wall, people that walked next to it would simply take Post-its and place their proposal. And we hired specialists to take each one of those Post-its and start to study them, because we have to collect all of the information, and there we can start to create a big mind, a great mind to take decisions. So the most important thing is not to have ideas loose, but instead to centralize them, and also to allow others that do have the internet to vote and make a comment or share the proposals received in an analog fashion. So your question is important, and it's also important to get to know that this strategy should work on a two-way process. Those that have access to the network, and will be applying a mobile application that tells you when there are new pulses, and tells you when there are people that had voted for your own proposals, to have an increased engagement. But we have to work really strong on the engagement and the analog engagement in the streets. Any other question? Any comment? Good afternoon. Thank you. Well, I'd like to congratulate each and every one of the panelists. Your presentations have been very interesting. I'd like to ask Mr. Elisabeth and the lady that's sitting on his right, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, Ana Luz Mejia. Could you please tell us about the education? Education is a public service, and this strategy has been very strong in Antioquia. Could you tell us, for instance, about the pulses in the case of education and the strategy of Antioquia, the most educated? Thank you. As I told you early on, depending on the main needs of the citizens, we launch Citizens Pulses, focus on different pillars. One of the pulses has to do with education, not as a challenge, but as an open question. There are two types of ways of participating in these ecosystems of co-creation. One thing is, okay, we need to save a road which is in a bad shape, and that's a citizen's challenge with a deadline and specific budget. And the other thing is an open question to identify trends and dreams of the citizens. With education, since right now we're just being launched, we launched a question: how can we increase all of the levels and services related to education? And right now, we are listening to the citizens, and then we'll be collecting the information, talking with the experts on education, and start to launch specific challenges. These are baby steps, but we'll be identifying all of the citizens' input to then match what they say with the overall interests of the administration, and of course to implement what the citizens want and to make an innovation and transformation. So let me tell you, we're open to that process, and we invite everyone to give us ideas of how to transform the educational system. Okay, good afternoon. Well, precisely, our development plan is called Antioquia the Most Educated, where education is the core of our entire public activity. The mega of our development plan is Antioquia Legal, and the second is education as a driver of huge transformations. So look at how Legal Antioquia, and one of its fundamental pillars is institutionality and the enhancement of institutions. And within that big package, we have citizen participation. Look, with our 1991 Constitution, Colombia really got it focused on social control. And the state cannot operate without citizens. And it cannot operate with an intervention that's clear and decisive of the citizens. Through our development plan with regards to education, citizen participation is paramount. That's why, if you can remember the map that I showed you that was packed with points, this is where we have reached the 125 municipalities of the department to create culture so citizens can participate. Here we have to join the state and the citizens to make a change. Otherwise, it's complicated. So I'd like to answer that education is paramount. Without it, we have absolutely no chance. Okay, I think if there are no other questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's have the last question, please. Rafael de la USA from Cuba. I participate in the programs of IT, and particularly with proceedings using ICTs. My question is for Mr. Juan Carlos, although I think that any of the panelists can answer it. First, I'd like to congratulate you all. Your panel was excellent, and I'd like to congratulate Antioquia for the developments it's making and for being such an example in Colombia. When it comes to implementing the proceedings, we had the same experience of one single place to do all the proceedings, but we have incompatibilities with the systems that we already have in place. The many official registers that we have, even the legality that there is, which stops joining the registrations. I'm talking about health proceedings, like transit fines, the ID cards. We're trying to solve this, but of course, this has to do with legal issues. Have you had legal problems, and what's the strategy to face them? It has to do more with the red tape of litigations. And oh, thank you for your question. Indeed, I think we've all had the same problems. There are legal barriers, standards, budgets. Indeed, when we have to simplify things. But I think that the major barrier we've had has to do with egos, because usually public entities have their own competencies. And when another entity is stepping in, you feel that you lose power. How have we been addressing this? First, with the national law for services to the citizens. And the core of what we do is a citizen. If we keep in mind where we're headed towards, and we If we look at systematization, the Administrative Department of Public Service working with documents needed for proceedings and the National Service for Citizen Service that has to do with simplifying all of the proceedings. That's good. Secondly, we have been making and building improvements with the players of the entities. Usually, public servants are the ones that have information of how to simplify and improve the proceedings. They know the business. And from them, we can receive the best suggestions. So we've engaged them so that they can simplify the proceedings to work closely with ICT staff and specialists. And that way, we have facilitated all the procedures. However, if this depends on the database and the barriers that we have, the scope of simplifying the proceedings have to do with the public service that establishes the standards and the Ministry of ITC, which is the one that provides the aid needed. I mean, the ITC Ministry has a platform in which entities can facilitate the technical part for procedures. Right now, the Colombian state, thanks to a task it's done with the DEF and the Ministry of ITC, have created a map in which we have proceedings that have a huge impact, that are of great importance, that will be simplified with the help of all of the teams. Thank you. Okay. We're going to need the institutional co-creation for that. Okay, to meet our schedule, I'd like to thank you all. This was a great panel for everyone. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank the main table, the panelists. We invite you to please sit in the auditorium. As you are aware, today the agenda has expanded, so we'll be launching we will be leaving for Friday the launch of the ITC Ministry presentation. However, we have Mr. Garcia would like to make an important announcement for all of you.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing? Welcome to Medellin. How are you doing? Okay? Okay. Great, fantastic. The ones that are still here, that's good. I know that for many of you, it's been a long trip. You've come from the other side of the planet to Colombia, and we'd like to thank you to stay with us. And before we move to the conclusions that Jean-Marie will be sharing with us, I'd like to share with you an activity that we'll be carrying out during the 2 days of the workshops on the 24th and 25th of this month. Tomorrow morning, when you arrive to the workshops, you will be given passports. It's a small booklet in which you can write down the contacts you'll make during the 2-day workshops. So you'll have settings to write down who you spoke with, which were the most important aspects of your conversation, the commitments you made with the people. Also, you'll have pages that you can rip off the passports so you can share your contact info. In addition, this passport is built so that you can move through the different stands which have been made for each of the finalists and winners of public service. They will have in the other pavilion where we'll be tomorrow their presentations, and the purpose of this passport is for you to go through each stand and to get it stamped by each stand. If you get a stamp of each of the winners, you'll be part of a contest at the end of the event in which you will be awarded for the best ambassador of all the presenters and the person that has the most stamps. Okay? So you'll have a souvenir of Colombia, and this implies to create contacts, networking, so that you can create contacts during these days. So tomorrow, we will be giving you the passports. The instructions are on the first page of the passport. Remember, you have to go through the stand of the Innovation Center, which is in the other pavilion. There you can validate the passport and begin your networking using this passport. In addition, in the Innovation Center, during the breaks, you have access to workshops and to other types of activities that can enrich your culture of innovation when you go back to your countries. Without further ado, let's listen to John Marie that will give us the conclusions of today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. To close the event, we will give way to Mr. Cayusa. Damas y caballeros, se pueden estar preguntando.
And all these answers, what remains to be seen? In my studies for motivation, I was told that when you let those who work see the results, they get motivated to work more. I know you have worked very hard the whole day, and I'm looking for a way of motivating you to work even harder tomorrow. So I'm going to give you a brief feedback of what took place since we started, especially these round tables. Most of the outputs will be written in a comprehensive report. We have been having rapporteurs in all sessions, and they have been putting it together. So I cannot pretend to be projecting to you a complete report, but I had ears who have put together some of the things you see on the screen. In essence, they attempted to summarize the major points of focus that came out of the discussion. I think, I don't know whether it is by design or just a coincidence, but the word transparent, since we opened this forum, has kept on cropping up. That there is need for the public service to be transparent to the people it serves. There is a catch around that, though. There is a difference between being transparent and being naked. At the same time, we claim transparency, but we want to retain privacy. So the biggest challenge to countries that are on the way to promoting transparency is how to find a meeting point, a point of compromise between the public service being transparent and respecting the privacy of individuals, whether they be leaders or individual civil servants or individuals in the public themselves. I think that point came out clearly. The second point that came out very clearly is the centrality of service to the people. That the post-2015 development agenda will be achieved when people feel they are being served. I think if you look at all the 17 proposed goals, they all have to do with services that must, one way or another, be delivered. And therefore, public services must focus their efforts on serving the citizens. But public services working alone seem to remain problematic. The breakdown of silos to create partnerships, opportunities for collaboration, that one also has been emphasized, which literally means the public service cannot do it alone. The public sector and civil society must be brought on board. Another aspect that came in very strongly is the involvement and engagement and paying attention to women and to gender issues. What it boils down to, if I can use a military language, we have a war to fight. It is a war against poverty. It is a war against hunger. It is a war against violence. It is a war to protect the environment. And when you have a war and you don't have enough soldiers, you cannot exclude some part of the population. And therefore, exclusion of women or exclusion of youth or exclusion of disabled people in the whole process of development is a wrong decision. And this point came out very clearly, especially concerning women, that they have to be very fully engaged in economic activity so that they have jobs. I hope you have spotted the shift in argument. If you read Beijing documents about women, it was about them being brought on board in leadership. It was about creating institutions which can promote women in public administration. It was like we were saying, let them have positions. Now it is a shift. We are talking of women empowerment in terms of social, economic, and political life. That's a slight shift, and it's very, very important. The SDGs, for them to be achieved, will necessitate coordination, collaboration, and higher levels of integration, especially in terms of development planning. Another point that emerged is this emphasis on e-government, the use of ICT to do government. As someone asked in the audience, I think people are still taking this issue of the use of information and communication technology to do government work very lightly. But maybe, as you will notice, as we keep on seeing the best performers, they are awarded the United Nations Public Service Awards, we will eventually get convinced that there is high value in investing on the use of ICT to do government business. There was an emphasis on leadership and human resources, especially in terms of talent, in terms of changing mindsets, in terms of creating creative forces in the public service, innovative forces in the public service that take the service to the public at the center of their work. I think we may have to revisit the whole meaning of public service so that we bring back the public into public service. There was emphasis on talent, leadership, especially transformational, and human resources as drivers of change, and these need to be developed. There was an emphasis on audit, but I have been a manager and I'm still a manager. There is always a tendency to fear the word auditor. When I listened to the discussion around audit, that fear is unfounded. Because the audit we normally fear is the one that is going to discover that you had fraud here, or you had embezzlement here, or you misused funds here, and all this. Yes, that is part of audit, but I think there is an aspect of audit that is comprehensive, which goes into systems to establish tenets of efficiency in the use of resources, to establish effectiveness in the achievement of set objectives, to establish responsiveness in the sense of responding to the needs of the citizen. If I was in government, that would be music to me. If I can have an audit system that it can establish these things that go beyond finance and accounting, then maybe you would have chances of improvement. So the emphasis on audit institutions, I think, was very well called for. The gap between the perception by citizens and public servants, that needs to be bridged, especially through engagement and participatory approaches, so that public servants don't pursue what they think is what the public needs, when actually the public isn't getting exactly what it needs. And this would create trust between the public service and the people, because the people will feel that they are being served. By the way, there is something that never comes in, and I don't know at what point we miss it. Governments survive on people's money. And naturally, it should be an aspect of natural justice that you use my money, I should see the value in it. It should at least get what I want. And so citizens' participation was regarded as paramount. There was even talk of a collective mind. How to create that is a big challenge. And citizens as public servants. I think when we are talking of participatory approaches, we are narrowing the distinction between public servants and the public itself. They need to join forces in order to create a positive impact. Something that came out very strongly on the issue of innovation, I know innovation is going to run through all the 5 days, is historical, but very pertinent. That if there is any other reason why we should emphasize creativity and innovation in the public service, is because it is a matter of human survival. Humanity has always faced challenges, and it has always overcome challenges and survived through its creativity and innovativeness. And therefore, with the challenges that sustainable development goals are going to bring, we need to marshal all the creativity and the innovativeness that human beings have so that we can overcome these challenges. I know this doesn't capture what everyone had and what everyone said, but I thought I should throw this back to you so that overnight you think about it. It may come back and make the workshops of tomorrow probably with the basis of the thinking that went in this room. I really thank you very much for your patience. we almost abused it, but thank you very much.
En este momento, la Alcaldía de Medellín los invita a una actividad de bienvenida en la Caja de Madera de Plaza Mayor. Nuestro personal de apoyo les indicará el recorrido. Por favor, no olviden devolver los instrumentos que prestaron para el audio de las traducciones. Invitamos a los ganadores de los premios de servicio público que nos acompañan en la zona de exhibición del foro a recibir y preparar sus stands a partir de las 8 a.m. de mañana. Nuestro personal de apoyo estará esperándolos para atender sus solicitudes. Al finalizar la actividad, se brindará el servicio de transportes a los hoteles sugeridos por el evento. Recuerden que la acreditación se llevará a cabo con el ingreso del Centro de Exposiciones de Plaza Mayor, Medellín. A los demás participantes les esperamos mañana a las 9 a.m. para iniciar la primera jornada de talleres de desarrollo de capacidades en el Centro de Exposiciones de Plaza Mayor. Recuerden que en el lobby de los hoteles sugeridos encontrarán la información sobre los horarios de transporte. Señoras y señores, de parte del Gobierno Nacional, el Departamento Administrativo de la Función Pública, el Departamento Nacional de Planeación y el Ministerio de las Tecnologías de la Información y las Comunicaciones, muchas gracias por acompañarnos en la primera jornada del Foro de Servicio Público de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas. Agradecemos al Medellín Convention Bureau, Ruta N Medellín, la Alcaldía de Medellín, al Programa de las Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo en Colombia y a Marca País por su apoyo para la realización exitosa de este evento. A todos nuevamente gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy y que tengan una feliz noche.